So good morning to you all and a very warm welcome to our panel discussion. My name is Karma Islam from EIT Urban Mobility, a European initiative that aims to accelerate positive change in mobility and making urban spaces more livable. It is a pleasure for me to both moderate this session today and welcome you to our panel discussion. So as mentioned by Anna, battery electric vehicles are expected to help address some of the sustainability shortfalls of the transport sector, mainly in relation to the air pollution and dependency on fossil fuels. However, battery electric vehicles are expected to be as low emission or zero emission only at its point of use. And with the global increase of the demand in batteries, there are some challenges that needs to be addressed, such as the take-up of the production of batteries, the degradation of natural resources, and the recycling and reuse process. And this brings me to the aim of our session today, which is to discuss with our experts today the impact of electric vehicle batteries and how we could provide a more sustainable process for the electrification of transport. So without further ado, let's welcome our panelists. So I would like to ask the panel today to make a quick round of introduction, starting with Antoine.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Antoine Welter. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Circulion, where we enable the economical and ecological reuse of batteries, enabling second or third life, as well as also enabling a clean recycling for the batteries.
Perfect. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here today. My name is Hernán Pájaro. I am working for EIT Energy, one of the sister companies of EIT Urban Mobility, so very excited to be here. And in EIT Energy, we focus on accelerating the sustainable transition of energy and by investing in innovative technologies, startups, and also in industry projects.
Thank you. My name is Itzel Obregón. Good morning, everyone. I am also working at EIT Urban Mobility, which is sort of like the younger sibling of Energy, so to say. So we are an initiative of the European Innovation and Technology focused on the future of sustainable mobility. I am working as the Innovation Lifecycle Officer at one of our several hubs located across Europe, and I'm sitting here in Munich. So I mainly strive to bring innovations to the market, and we do so by bringing together key stakeholders to ideate and create products and solutions that are also tested in real situations in cities worldwide. And well, my main focus is energy and mobility, also Europe-wide. And I'm really happy to be here and looking forward to our discussions today.
Good morning, thank you. So my name is Dieter Stelzer. I'm very glad to be here today, that all of you came to my hometown, Munich, where we transport all of you around Munich from Stadtwerke München. And we plan to electrify our buses by 2035. And I'm very grateful to be here. Thank you.
So again, welcome to you all. So our panel will be focused on two things. First, we would like to understand how the take-up of electric vehicle batteries contribute to the sustainable urban mobility transition. And then based on that, see what measures can be taken in order to minimize the environmental impacts. So let's get right into our first round of questions. And my first one is for you, Dieter. Itzel, sorry. So what role does wider electrification play in the take-up of batteries? And what amount of material is being used for the electric vehicle fleet stock today? And what amount is expected to be used in 2030?
Okay, thank you, Karma. Yeah, I guess this sets up the scene, right? So wider electrification is critical for both the development and also the uptake of batteries. And due to the fact that we are living in an energy crisis as well as a climate emergency, this has become critical. So first of all would be the the critical impact of the situation right now in Eastern Europe, which has urged for energy security. And that has led also then, in terms of climate, well, that batteries are basically the enablers and are crucial for securing the use of renewable energy sources. These renewable energy sources are just basic if we want to lead the path towards decarbonization and cleaner energy solutions. So, yeah, this is the path through a critical transition that basically batteries are enabling. Well, as the growth of the dependence on energy grows, and this is not only in the transport and mobility sector, well, there is more and more demand for battery technologies, better, faster, and innovative. And, well, in mobility, the most impactful driver is electric mobility. When there are more and more vehicles on the road that are changing to electricity, then the market itself calls for better technologies. Technologies that increase the energy density, that make farther charging or increase the lifespan of batteries, as well as recyclability and so on. So all of these technologies then loop back to the stationary energy storage and wider electrification. So we can say that basically batteries are the enabler of the energy transition. This is why they're so important. On your second question in regards of the amount of materials that will be needed to secure the electric vehicle fleets today, well, this is difficult to calculate and estimate because this depends on so many factors, including, well, the availability of natural resources, the technologies of batteries, recyclability, and so on, so on. So, but one thing is clear, it's going up and it's going quickly. So there's an estimated calculation that is a common agreement, which is, yeah, well more above than 30% across the entire value chain. So that gives you an idea how big it is. And in electric vehicles, I think the International Energy Agency states that there's an annual growth of 35% on electric vehicles today. Lithium battery as well, 30%. So they all kind of match. This is, let's say, why it's so urgent and important that the batteries are explored and also kept sustainable.
Thank you, Itzel. So my next question is for Dieter. What are the environmental impacts of an electric vehicle and its battery compared to an internal combustion engine? But perhaps in more specifically and in simpler terms, do electric buses have a better environmental footprint than conventional buses?
Thank you. So an electric bus has, compared to an ICE bus, over the whole lifetime, a real better impact than an ICE bus. But there are also other benefits from electric bus. Electric bus has less CO2 emissions or no CO2 emissions locally in the city. We have less noise pollution in the city. We have a smoother drive for our passengers. And we also have, so a bus is using, regarding to your second question, an electric bus is using only in production emissions, CO2 emissions, and as for an ICE bus, it emits through the whole lifetime 80% more CO2 emissions than an electric bus. Because our buses at Stadtwerke München, we only run them with electric energy, with renewable electric energy, which means we have there no more CO2 emissions. And we at Stadtwerke München, we drive now at the moment around 600 buses in Munich, and each bus makes 60,000 kilometers per year. So this means that we have a very big impact. A lot of cars don't drive that much in the city every day. And so we are a big contributor here to the change.
Thanks a lot. Ednan, can you tell us what factors are important for competitive battery cell production?
Perfect. Glad you asked. And I think it's important because I think, Itzel, you really hit the nail when you said about batteries enabling the electrification. And I will even dare to say that considering the battery production and its entire value chain, from raw materials all the way to recycling, I would say it's inevitably entangled with the EV value chain. So that's mostly because the battery is actually the most valuable component of the electric vehicle. It represents 30 to 40% of the value in light duty vehicles, that is personal cars, and up to 50% of the value of heavy duty trucks or buses, for example. So it's fair to say that the battery is actually the beating heart of the EV, and the success of this industry actually hinges of the success of the EV. So just taking that into perspective, and to answer to your question, I see mostly two important factors for the competitiveness of the industry, and that would be cost and the supply chain. So if we look at the cost, Europe really hovers in terms of battery prices around, I don't know, $170 per kilowatt hour. And countries like China, for example, they sit comfortably at less than $130 per kilowatt hour. And that's a 30% advantage in terms of costs. And that's why, for example, not only China, but also Korea and Japan, they grab 90% of the battery market. And that gives them, an outstanding competitive advantage when it comes to EVs. So that brings me to my second point on, in terms of competing for market share in EVs, it's not only about, a race to grab that market share, but also a race to secure a competitive and cost-efficient supply chain. And that's very important, mostly because battery producers, they won't develop their gigafactories if there is not a automaker behind it to support it. It comes hand in hand. So securing one depends on the other. And if we look at China, battery producers like CATL are, closing deals left and right with car makers and truck makers. And it's in the best interest of automakers and OEMs here in Europe to also secure the value chain and the supply chain here. And I'm saying that also because it can add value. For example, the best example that I can think of is the Swedish company Northvolt recently developed or announced that they developed together with Volvo Trucks a battery that can exceed the lifetime of the trucks, I think 30 million kilometers, and that's an amazing number. And I think they achieved a 1/3 of the carbon footprint. So these are value, specifically in the green and sustainability of the batteries. These are things that we can develop here in Europe. So it's very important for us to do this. And we've come a long way through when it comes to building a value chain in Europe. Before 2015, we had counting with our fingers how many gigafactories we had, and then we've been building on and on with 21 pilot projects already in the pipeline. And I think my message to car makers is that if we are really serious about keeping the industry in Europe and keeping the jobs in Europe, we have to be serious also about securing our supply chain in Europe. And I think that's important because I wouldn't like to see another Nokia kind of situation, because automotive is really important industry for us. So I think altogether, car makers, investors, and policymakers can do amazing things to really push the market forward.
Okay. And Antoine, what happens to the used batteries, and what role is played by the secondary use of vehicle batteries?
Yep, so I can complete what Hernan started. Yeah. It's super important that we get a real battery value chain set up in Europe, right? We start off with the production, then we put them into cars, and then we need to think about what happens when these batteries leave their first life. That's when we come in, what we do is we develop robots to automatically dismantle these batteries into their different components so that the modules can be reused, the battery management systems can be reused, or that they can be recycled cleanly. And this is very important because what happens today is I'd call it a more or less old school process that all batteries are shredded and then only very little amounts of raw materials are being recovered. Obviously, there's also in the purely recycling field a lot of development that's been going on, so we're going in the right direction, but I think what prevails is that the purer the material you put into the recycling process, obviously the more raw materials we can recover, which is also to that point extremely important in our opinion for Europe to be more and more resource independent, which we are very clearly not today.
All right. So then let's move to our second topic, which is what measures can improve the social and environmental impacts of EV batteries. So I would like to start with Dieter. What relevant projects constitute best practices of EV battery design, collection, and recycling? And if you can give us the reason behind that.
Okay, thank you. So for us, choosing the right battery and the right bus is very important, as we plan to use the bus actually longer than a normal diesel bus. So we want to use the bus up to 20 years. That's our idea. Normal diesel bus goes out of service normally after 12 years because CO2 emission standards are not top of the notch anymore. So we have different ideas. One big thing is for us also we need to have maintenance accessibility. So for us it's very important how can we get to the battery, how can we have a look inside of the battery, maybe do some measurements if something is wrong, how can we exchange some ECUs, some switches, some maybe even some cell modules or something, where are the batteries built in, how can we attach them. So this is for us very important because we don't want to throw the whole battery away just because one ECU or something is broken if we use it over a long lifetime. And so therefore we're going to into procurement process, the companies explain to that, and then we choose also the bus with the best benefits there. What we also see is that we have, after the lifetime of a bus, in the lifetime of the bus, we want to change the battery at least once. So we will have a lot of batteries that we can use still, but they are not good enough for us in terms of range of the bus. So we are now also into Second Life projects. We already have a Second Life project running where we have actually 4 old bus batteries in a container where we use it for peak shaving for the charging. So this already gave us a lot of insights. How is it? How can we connect it in the future? And this is also something in the procurement process that we ask the companies how easily can we use these batteries in the future for Second Life projects? And this is actually something where we see that there still needs to be a lot of things done. But I think this will come fast when a lot of buses gets new batteries. So there will be a lot of old batteries done on the market, and then there will be a lot of companies, they say, hey, okay, we have a solution for you. But it should be easy, plug and play, and we want to use the batteries as they are in the tray. So we don't want to dismantle them and use the modules themselves, because then it will be far too expensive. And we have then maybe a lot of possibilities to use these batteries already in Munich, because as SVM we also have solar power, we have wind power and stuff like that, so we can use them as battery storage projects. And so there are a lot of possibilities that then we have to explore in 6 to 8 years when we change the first batteries in our buses. And in regard of recyclability, we also want to see when we have a good access to all small parts, we also think that it's possible that we can change all the small parts on their own, so we can build them out, so we can back the copper, we can get back the ECUs, the modules and stuff like that. And we even maybe think about when we get a new battery, why don't we just use our tray that's still there and just put in new modules and use the old CCUs, use the old copper bars and something like that. I don't want a new tray for the battery if it's still perfect, usable. So there are things that we look on when we procure a bus, if all of this stuff is possible. And we don't want to buy a bus that we can throw away basically after that. That's nothing we want to do.
Yep.
All right. So, Itzel, how can we incentivize innovation in battery technology to promote more sustainable materials and manufacturing processes?
Thank you, Karma. So I would say, yes, policymakers, industry players, and I mean, society as a whole plays a role and needs to collaborate to ensure that this happens throughout the whole value chain, as you say. But I would say, yeah, political leadership and policies come first to set up, like I would say, the building blocks to set up this for the entire value chain. So this, in turn, will then attract investment that was well touched upon by Hernan, which is critical, and large amounts are needed for promoting the innovation and creating new technologies. And well, apart from the already pushing market, it's growing and it's changing a lot. There's this geopolitical arena going on as well, where there's competition on getting costs down from China, USA, Europe mainly. And we need to test, we need to try, we need to innovate, and we need to improve very, very fast. Because I think here the winners are the quickest ones. So, I mean, from our experience, yes, collaboration brings innovation to succeed on the ground. And, well, we see like great ideas coming from universities, coming from startups, from industry, even starting up from the cities and their needs. So they have to come together and they ideate, they create product solutions that are tested in real cities in Europe here, and then brought to the market. So one good example of such collaboration would be last year we had a project called EcoSwap, which is working around the swappable batteries ecosystem. So they basically took out the cost of the battery of the vehicle purchase itself and offered a swappable ecosystem for the buyers of the vehicles. And now they're even expanding this year to Italy, and they're exploring now this year also the recyclability of all their entire value chain and their product itself. So I would say like, that would be, from my side, a way to push innovation forward.
Thank you, Itzel. And I would like to take up on what you said regarding policy and ask you, Hernan, about the new batteries regulation that was just put into place last month. Mm-hmm. How does this new law support the circularity ambitions of the European Green Deal?
I'm glad you asked, because I think the battery regulation, it's a really important step forward, or a step in the right direction when it comes to first positioning Europe as a major player, particularly in the green battery value chain. And it supports the Green Deal ambitions, I would say not only on the fact to make Europe less resilient or reliant on third countries for critical raw materials, but I would say also it goes a long way when it comes to promoting sustainable battery production in general. And I think that's a competitive edge that we can get, particularly for the European battery, let's say, proposition, right? I would say the regulations actually pretty much raise the bar high in terms of very clear targets set for materials recycled, for recovery, for recollection. And what I highlight also is how they prioritize refurbishment and remanufacturing of batteries, so the whole second life aspect. That could open up things like what you were saying, like maintenance and being able to really repair the battery, or even have a second life for that. So looking at those aspects, I think it's come a long way. And similarly, in terms of sustainable production, the whole battery passport, and specifically the requirements on carbon footprint reporting, for example, those are also setting the bar high in terms of responsibility, in terms of transparency, in terms of data traceability, and I think those are key aspects when it comes to circularity. but I would say it does a very good job of connecting the, both ends of the value chain. But the question is, is it really enough to really close the cycle? So, I think it's a good step forward, but then what else is we need to be doing? And I'm thinking, for example, questions like, how can we really use the carbon footprint data and really leverage that to promote and reward or incentivize battery producers that are, that are doing innovation in terms of low carbon batteries? So not only looking at, we need, this reporting, but also, for example, I don't know, setting a maximum threshold of carbon footprint, or maybe like, penalization on battery producers that do not meet these targets. Things like that could probably incentivize innovation in that aspect. And then on the other hand, I'm thinking also on the automotive industry, how can we really prop it to, especially the aftermarket sales, to really incentivize recollection targets? Because the regulations do not set collection targets specifically for EVs, mostly for appliances and portable batteries. I think that was a term used. But then how can we incentivize them as well? Because we have to consider the traceability requirements that it puts on the OEMs. It creates some gaps in terms of capabilities, in terms of IT, in terms of data sharing, partnerships to really get that part going. And what I'm seeing is, for example, what kind of schemes can we support and incentivize? We'd say, for example, buyback schemes, or maybe battery as a service scheme with swappable batteries. So all these aspects could play a role in innovation as well. And all in all, I think it really opens up the door to more innovative models and more innovative technologies in general.
Yep. That makes the perfect transition to my question to Antoine. So we know that Circuline has a very ambitious goal into fighting the climate crisis by maximizing the life cycle of battery cells. So where are you standing at the moment, and what are your future plans in the EV market?
Yeah, sure. Happy to answer that. Before that, I'd like to comment on 2 points because they're super important. We work a lot with universities together. And there's a lot of great ideas coming out of these universities. What I think we also need to acknowledge in Europe is that we're not that great at commercializing them yet, right? We'll get there, and that's one thing that we really try to work on. And I think there can be more initiatives even to really support that topic, because there's a lot of money to do R&D and to do exploratory things, but then we need to put the horsepower on the street. I think that's super important. And then quickly on your point about battery regulations, what we do see that it has helped a lot to give investment security to companies in the whole battery value chain, that there are stricter regulations. People are now willing to invest the 3-digit million into recycling of batteries, so that's super important, I think, for the whole ecosystem. Then coming more to what our ambitions are, obviously we started off doing urban mobility, so micro-mobility, e-scooters, e-bikes, e-mopeds, moved on to all the portable batteries, which are power tools, then now doing EV as well, and into drones and everything around more larger vehicles as well. So I think what is crucial is that we need to make it economically viable. If we think we can electrify everything, but it's more expensive than a traditional combustion engine, there will be no adaptation. And I think we need to be realistic that if we want to make this, let's say, green revolution really happen, we need to make it adaptable for the masses, meaning it needs to be economically and ecologically viable. And that's what we try to work on, is really making it a lot easier to dismantle the batteries, what Dieter mentioned, and to reuse them again, using smart robotics, developing processes where you can really, the way batteries are built is the way they should be disassembled. Right? So there's obviously still some challenges in that. We've seen some new designs on batteries which are not very favorable for the dismantling, if it's a cell to pack and so on. So I think there's still some innovation that needs to be done. I also think speed is extremely crucial. I do think that we've been in this for 3 years now. There's been a lot of talk about collaboration, but there hasn't been so much. It's changed over the last 12 to 18 months, because now everyone is, I would say, a little bit more feeling the pressure. I think we have
Yes.
We have to admit that we have see some really good cars coming not out of Europe anymore, but coming from other continents. And we have to also in Europe get on our feet and not rest on the 100-year history that we have in automotive, but try to adapt to the new world.
Perfect. So now let's open the floor for questions and give the floor to the audience to ask you any questions they might have. We have a mic around here, so yeah.
Okay, yeah. Hello, thank you for this meeting. So I would like to ask, what's your opinion about the future chemistries of the cells, regarding the sustainability, regarding the performance? What do you think, what will be the future? NMCs, lithium ions, or solid states are coming? So just an opinion wise. Thank you.
Right.
I can share quickly my personal opinion and what we see also. I think there's always what will happen in 5 years where no one really knows and what is now coming to the market. I think it's pretty obvious that LFP is becoming bigger and bigger. And this is also, especially in our domain, so when you talk about second use and recycling, a lot more challenging. There's a lot less really interesting raw materials in these batteries, so there needs to be even more separation of these batteries. So that's what we see a lot, I think, in the smaller portable batteries, in the urban mobility, so e-bikes, e-scooters, that will remain more or less NMC, I think. And then further in the future, I think now, to your point also, there's been huge factories built up to build these lithium-based batteries, so that will probably stay for a little bit because those investments are billions and not a few millions. So I think that will stay, but in the future, hopefully, we will see more, and this is also where we come from at Circulion, is saying we're chemistry agnostic, right? We want to make sure that the materials can get reused. What chemistry it is for us not crucial.
Maybe just to add a point, I'm definitely not a chemistry, but what we're also looking at the industry is that, to your point as well, I would say it's even more about being neutral about the technologies that, but also from the perspective of the battery designers and the OEMs and the ones that are actually implementing the batteries in the vehicles. It's important to consider this aspect. So this aspect of design for recyclability. So these chemistry that are coming, as you said, are not very competitive when it comes to recycling. So it's actually cheaper to just extract new raw materials and produce these batteries than actually reusing them. So if we really want to achieve these targets in circularity and create this green battery value chain in Europe, I think it's important also from that perspective to take this into account, and also to take into account what raw materials are available in Europe and what materials are coming back into the circle. So really looking at these aspects, we can probably create most cost-competitive batteries and involving more of the circularity part from the design, so from the outset. Yeah.
Okay. So also for us as a user, we see that in heavy-duty vehicles, LFP batteries are more and more coming because we have a little bit more space available, and we have a more plannable schedule ahead. So we are not entering the car randomly by minus 20 degrees. So it's like we can, even if there's some disadvantages, we can use them better, like if you have a bus service or a truck service or something. So LFP is definitely getting strong.
Any other questions from the audience? If not, then perhaps I can ask you an additional question.
Yep.
So, in your opinion, what are the opportunities and challenges that can help support a more sustainable electrification process of the transportation system? So, more specifically, of public acceptance aspect, regulatory framework, financial aspects, and bringing innovation to the market. So I would like each one of you to give me your take on that based on your area of expertise. Perhaps we can start with you, DP.
Yeah, thank you. So for us, it's also public acceptance comes when they see a benefit in change. Benefit in change means for us that we have less CO2 emission in the city, which means that the air is better inside of the city. Also, electric vehicles are not as loud as an internal combustion engine. So if, for example, when you sleep next to a bus stop and they have your bedroom, you would be very happy to have in the future an electric bus coming and not waking you up every 10 minutes. So there's a lot of benefits. And what you see now, not so heavy in cars, but what you see now in buses is that as you don't have a need to have the big engine inside of the bus, there's a big possibility to use the space available different. So, for example, you don't have the engine tower in the back anymore, so you can use it actually different and create like better accessibilities. You may have like a straight floor, you have less steps and something. So with all these changes, people will say, yeah, that makes sense. And this is actually something I say, we need also put out these things that can be different with this technology.
Okay. And what about the regulatory framework, perhaps, Hernan, if you can share some insight on light electric vehicles?
Oh, yeah. So I would say the regulations that we were talking about, the battery regulations in Europe, one thing that I praise is how they put attention and emphasis also on light electric vehicles with their collection targets. Mostly because when we look at micromobility, what I see is, we always think about share bikes and, the Volts and Limes of the world. And we think, yeah, it's probably a smaller market, but if we really look at micromobility as a whole, so including all the electric bikes that are being sold, the two-wheelers, three-wheelers, the private part of that is growing substantially. And I think in terms of sales, it's going to outpace the sale of electric vehicles at some point in the next few years. So micromobility, in my opinion, is something that is important of goods and also of people, right? So if we look at the battery part, what I'm not seeing in the industry right now is really a focus on tailoring some of these batteries towards these specific use cases. So in terms of size, in terms of recyclability, and what I like about this new regulation and setting these recollection targets and making them swappable as a starting point, it's really opening up a new world of, I would say a new world, but new business models of circularity. So battery as a service and light electric vehicles are actually very easy to do these things and really focus, for example, on safety, because a lot of people are actually handling these batteries by themselves. So it's an important, let's say, space that requires attention. And that's, for example, why EIT Energy, together with EIT Urban Mobility, we're doing an impact study, feasibility study on what are the opportunities here in Europe. So if you are interested, I'm happy. Just please be in contact with me, and then we can chat about these opportunities. But yeah, I think that's an opportunity that I think is a little bit overlooked, but is worth considering at least.
Yeah, sounds good. And Antoine, perhaps you commented about the business models and how it could be more sustainable. Can you perhaps elaborate on that?
Yeah, sure. So I think it comes again to the point of regulation, how much investment security there is. I think definitely on the highest level, at the European level, it's been understood. There's the European Innovation Council Accelerator, which does great stuff. We got a grant of $5.5 million last year to really build up this whole value chain, because I do think that we have to be realistic. It's a new market, it grows quickly, so we also need solutions to deal with the problems. So we're good at solving one problem, but for that comes a second problem, and we'll need to quickly grow and build up a value chain that can deal with those problems. And I think that's super important. This is, on the one hand, obviously investment heavy, right? You need to set up facilities, you need to set up, in our case, robots and the whole value chain behind. So there's a significant amount of investment that needs to go in, but I do think that if it is deployed smartly, there are very good use cases for having a battery in 3 lives. So it can go from a mobility to a storage to an emergency style battery. So there's a lot of lives that it can go through, and by doing that, we even reduce the footprint a lot further than what Dieter already mentioned.
Okay, so we're getting close to our end of the session. So I would like to thank you all for being here with us this morning, and of course thanking all of you for answering the questions that were raised to you and for an insightful panel discussion. So a big applause to all of you.
Thank you.